this is getting worse and worse and worse for Donald Trump.
It's very unusual for Trump to be on the communications back foot. It has followed him around for 2 weeks.
And they've got into such a tangle over this. And it goes to the kind of core of politics 101, which is it's not the crime that kills you, it's the cover up. And it's looking like they are covering up. And it may be it's no more than just embarrassing details about Donald Trump and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. In which case, publish. But if it's more than that, then maybe they don't want it to be published.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Attorney General Pam Bondi privately told Donald Trump that he appeared in the Epstein Files multiple times.
The Wall Street Journal is now reporting that Justice Department officials told President Trump in May that his name was among many names mentioned in the Epstein Files. This is something the White House is now labeling as, quote, fake news, end quote.
From ABC 7, live breaking news.
A breaking news bombshell just dropping. A news report today that President Trump's name is among the many listed in the Jeffrey Epstein files. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi told the president back in May that his name appears several times in documents her department reviewed.
Yeah, the bombshell in question is not unadjacent to that massive ordnance penetrator that the US dropped on that nuclear site in Iran. This time, though, the bombshell is dropping on the White House, and Donald Trump now looks like he's involved in a cover-up over who knew what and when about whether his name was in the Epstein Files. Where does this go next? Welcome to the News Agents. It's John.
It's Emily. And late last night, the Wall Street Journal dropped another bombshell, arguably a bigger bombshell than the one they dropped this time a week ago. They reported that Pam Bondi, the US Attorney General, had told President Trump back in May that his name was mentioned multiple times in the Epstein files, along with those of other high-profile figures. Being mentioned in the Epstein files is not automatically a sign of wrongdoing, but it is curious that the response from the White House has been once again to shut this down and claim it is fake news. There are questions today around what those files tell us of new about President Trump and why the news has come out, and indeed from who, if it happened almost 2 months ago.
So let's deal with the fake news part of this first of all, because I've seen some media outlets saying the White House denies. No, the White House hasn't denied. The White House uses the phrase fake news to denote anything it doesn't like. It doesn't say it's false. And there are other people in the White House who are saying, well, yeah, of course. I mean, you'd expect Donald Trump's name to be in there because him and Epstein were mates for a very long time. Well, which is it? Is it fake news and a lie, or is it nothing to be excited about? In which case, why are they so exercised about it? Because going back to the timeline, Emily, that you sketch out, Trump is told in May by Pam Bondi that his name appears multiple times. Then the decision comes from Pam Bondi, we're not going to release anything about this. We've closed the files. There is nothing to see here. Move on. Well, what the Wall Street Journal has just done is said, oh, yes, there is. There's plenty to see here. And you have got to release it now to the public because this is getting worse and worse and worse for Donald Trump.
One other corner of that timeline is the comments that came from Elon Musk on June the 5th. In other words, very shortly after it would have got out that Pam Bondi had informed the president. So all those people at the time, and I think we were amongst them, saying, well, if this was true, if Elon Musk knew this, why didn't he say it earlier? You know, he's been working with Trump since January. Why didn't he say it earlier? That all makes a little bit more sense now. That the idea that Musk knew he had a bombshell bit of information when he said it publicly online during the bust-up he had with Trump. And I guess if you go back to this idea that Pam Bondi had told the president that he was in the files in May. And it's important to note that the White House comms director, Stephen Chung, is saying this is just a continuation of fake news stories concocted by the Democrats and the liberal media. And then he tries to talk about the Obama-Russia scandal again. As you say, they're just not handling this very smartly. And I think that's the unusual bit of all this, that normally Trump can make things go away. So we know, for example, that a week ago, when that first Wall Street Journal news bomb dropped about the birthday card that Trump had reportedly sent Epstein, he got on the phone to Murdoch and he tried to calm things down. He thought that Murdoch was going to kill the story because Trump had asked him. Murdoch didn't kill the story. They ran it 2 days later. And Trump then called it fake news and was cross at Murdoch. I mean, it's a curious world that we live in, isn't it? Where the president isn't embarrassed that news has leaked out that he tried to kill the story, but he's angry that he didn't manage to kill the story. And I think this is what we come back to with this whole saga. It's very unusual for Trump to be on the communications back foot. It has followed him around for 2 weeks, 15 days, and it's become the story that, gossipy America, but pretty much all America, is discussing right now because he's not really handled it very well.
You mentioned the Obama thing there, and Obama and Russia and Obama behaving treacherously, and he's guilty of treason and must face the legal consequences of that. Donald Trump there is painting himself as the victim of a conspiracy. With Epstein, he's at the centre of the conspiracy. And that is a really uncomfortable place to be. And the more this goes on, and the more that is revealed along the way, the more you think there are questions to be answered. And apparently, the person who was telling everybody that Trump's name was in these files was Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. The same Kash Patel who, before he was appointed the director of the FBI, was at the forefront of saying we must release all the Epstein papers, there is wrongdoing there. They've now found Donald Trump's name in the middle of it and thought, we mustn't publish anything. And they've got into such a tangle over this. And it goes to the kind of core of politics 101, which is it's not the crime that kills you, it's the cover-up. And it's looking like they are covering up. And it may be it's no more than just embarrassing details about Donald Trump and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. In which case, publish. But if it's more than that, then maybe they don't want it to be published.
Yeah. And, you've raised this question. I mean, I think from everything we're hearing now, the person who didn't keep his mouth shut at the time is Kash Patel. I mean, you hire clowns, it turns into a circus. Frankly, he should have probably realised that if he surrounded himself with people who carry out acts of war on an unverified Signal chat group, then the chances of people, believing in the importance of national security or believing in the importance of tight circles of trust probably doesn't exist either. So interesting that when Trump was asked whether Bondi's job was safe, Kash Patel's job was safe, Dan Bongino, who's the second in command, Kash Patel's job was safe, he basically said Bondi's safe and Kash Patel is safe. And I wonder if there was something at the time which is like, yeah, it's not going to look good for me to have either of those two on the outside. I cannot afford to have them on the outside because of basically what I have asked them to do, which is shut down the whole talk of an Epstein investigation because they were the ones that told me my name was in there.
So I just want to interrupt there because you mentioned about the leak of the information, the classified information from Pete Hegseth before the Houthi attack. There is reporting just now that I'm seeing from CNN saying that the Signal chat, a conversation that included a journalist, it did break all confidentiality agreements. Apparently, the Pentagon's Inspector General has received evidence that the military plans shared from Hegseth's Signal account were taken from a US Central Command document that was marked classified at the time. So there we are, just a little...
What does classified mean?
Well,
right?
classified, schmassified.
Exactly.
I mean, of course I can release it if I want to.
Exactly. So we are into totally new ground here, whereby the people that you think have signed, you know, oaths of confidentiality don't really see it that way themselves. And it is possible. I mean, we've been trying to work out who leaked this now. And yeah, if Kash Patel kind of went around telling a lot of people, then it's highly, you know, likely that somebody has kind of been saving this up and given it to the Wall Street Journal. But we should probably take you into one theory/conspiracy theory, which is starting to emerge. And I don't want to give this undue credence, but given that we are talking about a world in which conspiracy theories flourish, it's probably worth bringing you in on what some commentators are now thinking or describing. And they wonder whether at the centre of some of the leaking is one J.D. Vance. What proof do we have of this? Very little. We know that he took a flight without getting it signed off by Trump to a private meeting with Rupert Murdoch and his son Lachlan. And that was just days, kind of hours, days, 48 hours before the story appeared in the Wall Street Journal.
Which is owned by Murdoch.
Which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Is it likely that Vance would go behind his boss to do something like that? That's where we get into the realms of the political, right? Is he thinking that he can open up a wedge between Murdoch and Trump by giving Murdoch the stuff that he needs? And the Bulwark, the sort of Substack commentary site, has done a sort of deep dive into the tweet that J.D. Vance put out when the Wall Street Journal first announced their, Trump Epstein birthday card. And they quote J.D. Vance, "Forgive my language, but the story's complete and utter bullshit. The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is this letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone obviously believe this sounds like Donald Trump?" And the take from the Bulwark writer is, that's not a defence, it's a trap. Vance doesn't say categorically that Trump has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Instead, he limits his defence of Trump to this particular story in the Wall Street Journal. Then he demands to see the letter, constructing his defence around the idea that the letter doesn't exist and then demanding that the Journal produce it. I mean, look, that might be too deep a dive for many of you listening. We're not kind of getting all Derrida here and trying to deconstruct every single sort of full stop. But their point is that there could have been a much more fulsome rejection of not just the letter itself, which probably does exist. Otherwise, I don't think Rupert Murdoch would be standing by a $20 billion lawsuit. But the idea that Trump couldn't possibly have sent it. And he doesn't really defend Trump. He only defends the question of the existence of the letter.
Look, of the conspiracy theories that are out there, the J.D. Vance one seems utterly plausible. I mean, of course J.D. Vance stands to benefit if Trump gets into serious trouble over it. He's the guy who's one heartbeat away from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
It becomes his if Trump falls. So, yes, J.D. Vance, for all the public protestations, the qualified one that you've given, there have been others where he said, my first loyalty is to the President of the United States. I have no other loyalty but to the President of the United States. And you kind of listen to this and you think, methinks he doth protest a bit too much. But you go back a bit, go back to before the election, who was one of the people saying that the Epstein papers have to be released? It is one J.D. Vance.
Here he is on Theo Von's podcast.
Release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
J.D. Vance laughing along with Theo Von, who's kind of egging him on to say, don't we want to see what's in the Epstein files? J.D. Vance saying, we sure do. The other, I guess, curiosity, and again, I don't want to make too much of this, but this goes back to the Bulwark piece, which is that the Epstein story was published in the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal sits in a very unique position because of its conservative leaning and because it's owned by Rupert Murdoch, it is the one kind of mainstream paper that both adheres to kind of recognisable journalistic practices, i.e. verifying your sources, but isn't automatically dismissed as fake, progressive news. I mean, that's Trump's response to anything that appears, in the New York Times or anything that appears in CNN, virtually the Washington Post as well. And so I guess there is a question that it is slightly uncomfortable that the Wall Street Journal should have this story, because the Wall Street Journal pits Murdoch against Trump. But Murdoch also owns Fox, and Fox is full of people who have tied themselves to Trump. And so if you imagine Trump can't entirely dismiss everything that the Murdoch house is saying, because he also kind of needs the Fox commentators who have so far been his bread and butter backup.
Yeah, and I think, look, we could do a whole separate podcast on Rupert Murdoch and his influence. But we know that Rupert Murdoch, for all that he's a multi-billionaire businessman, he's a newspaper man as well. And he's always enjoyed, if the facts are there, speaking truth to power and bringing down politicians if they've, it was the Wall Street Journal that broke the story about Stormy Daniels and the $130,000 payoff. Yeah. So it hasn't, when it's a newspaper, he loves the smell of ink and he loves the swift of controversy. And so the Wall Street Journal has gone there. But you can be absolutely sure, and this is, I'm kind of passionately believe, the Wall Street Journal is not some fly-by-night person who goes on social media and spouts bullshit. The Wall Street Journal knows what it's doing. It's got proper serious journalists, grown-ups, who will be checking stuff out thoroughly before they put things in the paper. And that is why I think the dismissal of the birthday card and now the dismissal that Pam Bondi told Donald Trump in May doesn't ring true. I bet you the Wall Street Journal have got all their ducks in a row.
Also, when you are at the centre of a breaking news scandal, as Trump is basically right now, the question that is always at the back of your mind is, what else have they got? And he should be asking himself that. They had one scoop last week. They have a bigger scoop this week. I'd be wondering what's coming down the channel at me.
So Trump is obviously pretty upset about all of this. And I saw Politico reporting this morning that Trump is ruminating about the Epstein fallout and saying they're going to accuse me of some funny business, apparently, in a recent Oval Office meeting. That's according to a Republican close to the White House. They're going to me anyways, is what Donald Trump said about the way the media is going to report this. Trump is not on the front foot on this. As you absolutely rightly observe, Emily, he's normally been the master of how to communicate, how to change the subject, and it ain't working this time round.
We'll be back in a moment with more. Have you heard about your party?
Which party?
Your party.
My party?
No, your party.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, your party.
Yeah.
Is the new party.
Uh-huh.
Set up by Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. It's their party.
So they're calling their party their party?
No, they're calling their party your party. Not John Saple's party, but your party.
That's a bit confusing, isn't it? I mean, as a sort of way of anchoring what you stand for and just calling it your party. Also calling it your party when it's been set up by Zara Sultana.
It's not even his party.
And Jeremy Corbyn. It's our party, not your party.
Yes. He has posted to social media that the system is rigged and that real change is coming, and it has been signed by Zara Sultana. And it was Zara Sultana, remember, who kind of pre-launched the party without sign-off from Jeremy Corbyn nearly a month ago. So there was all that slight stickiness where she kind of jumped the gun, said we're starting a party.
And Jeremy Corbyn went to ground.
And now they have their party. And they say it's time for a new kind of political party, one that belongs to you. The system is rigged. And he goes on to talk about the 4.5 million children living in poverty in the 6th richest country in the world. The system's rigged when giant corporations make a fortune from rising bills. And the system's rigged when this government says there's no money for the poor, but billions for war. So you get a sense, I guess, of where they're going to look at changes to Labour policy that Keir Starmer's endorsing, not least that 5% spending on defence. Who knows what their position will be on NATO, but you can sort of guess it will not be sort of full-throated support. And it's pretty clear that they will take on that sort of tranche of the Labour left that felt it was fighting against cuts to welfare just 2 weeks ago.
I suppose the question is the danger they pose greater to Labour than it is to the Green Party or the Liberal Party? Because, of course, the Liberal Democrats and the Greens have been the party that have outflanked Labour on the left. And now you've got another party on the left saying we are the true party of the left.
And as we saw from the putative Green leader, Zach Palansky, just last week, he's very keen to get both Corbyn and Sultana, big names for him, on board in the same kind of slice of the political pie as the Greens now are.
Maybe they could call it Your Green Party.
Your Green,
Your
yes.
Your Party.
Yes.
Or Green Your Party.
Green
I think
Your
that
Party.
could be a good one. Right, OK, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Since recording that, we've heard from Zara Sultana that the party's name is not Your Party. What the party name is, we're not sure of now. But if you want to find out more, go to yourparty.com. Seriously. Honestly, I'm not making this stuff up. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.